Hello, kia ora everybody, and welcome to this video about the astrological energies that are affecting us in Australia and New Zealand from the week beginning Saturday the 30th of November. This is talking about Western tropical astrology, but from the point of view of the Southern Hemisphere, especially in Australia and New Zealand. I'm based in New Zealand, but this is covering Australia too. So what's happening this week? A couple of big things. We're already in Mercury retrograde. Neptune is stationing to go direct, but probably the biggest one is Mars stationing to go retrograde towards the end of the time period covered by this video. So let's get into it and see what's going on. Let's look at the moon phase that we're in. And of course, one of the big things happening this week is a new moon in the sign of Sagittarius. So of course, with the new moon, we have the sun conjunct the moon, and that is a quiet time. Things keep going in life, of course, but we don't tend to have any big new starts right on that new moon in the few days around it. That tends to be a time to withdraw and retreat and see what bubbles up from within about what you're going to work on over the following lunar month. Okay, and then on Monday the 9th, so a week and a day later, we have the first quarter moon, and by then you'll be totally into action with whatever are the next things for you. So while it's the new moon time, just keep things going and have some quiet time if you can. So as well as the new moon, let's look at what else is going on this week. We are in Mercury retrograde for 3 weeks, so we're well into that now by the time this video comes out. So just a reminder, Mercury retrograde is time to revise, revisit, research things, redo things, rediscover things, bump into your ex, bump into old people, people from your past, catch up with people, and take extra care with communications, working with machinery or technology, because there can be glitches and things that go wrong, and we need to be patient. We need to be patient with each other, because we'll probably, I told my family I was going to visit them on Tuesday, and I knew I was visiting them on Wednesday, but I wrote in the message Tuesday, so they were waiting for me on Tuesday, but it was Wednesday. Just little silly things like that can cause a bit of havoc. Okay, and there are the dates for Mercury retrograde, so you can see there in that middle date, we're in it now, the actual retrograde, and that will finish on the 16th, and then after that Mercury will go back over the degrees that it retrograded through. Okay, and then on Friday the 6th of December we've got Mercury cazimi, so that is halfway through the retrograde period when Mercury goes over the sun, and it's not always exact. It's only once in a while it's exactly going over the sun, but it's so close. And it is between us and the sun. So we've got Earth, Mercury, Sun, huge sun. And of course Mercury's tiny, but obviously in astrology it has a big impact. But at the moment of Mercury cazimi, I always used to hear about astrologers saying it was a good time to ask the universe a question. And I've found that to be really true. And of course, we can ask the universe or God or our higher selves or our inner self a question anytime. But I do find it pretty powerful at the Mercury cazimi moment. And that is when, have I got it on there? No, I don't. I've got it later on. That is when Mercury is exactly in line with the sun. And, if you ask the question around about that exact time within 15 minutes, you will get an answer. I believe you'll get an answer. I get an answer every time that I do this. And it's only 3 times a year, but I do find it's useful, and I sort of plan what question or questions I want to ask. The fewer questions, the more powerful I find. But and sometimes the answers come from another person. Sometimes it's come within a few minutes of asking, and other times it's come more towards the end of that retrograde period. And then Mars turns retrograde. This is only once every 2 years. It's really rare to have Mars retrograde compared to the other personal planets. But on the 7th of December, Saturday the 7th, Mars is going to start appearing to go backwards in the sky. It's going to be brighter red as well because it's closer to the Earth, more intense looking, and we're going to be feeling more intense with that Mars retrograde. So Mars is about our desire, our energy, our drive, our willpower, our determination. And when it's in retrograde, we're going to be feeling all of that more so, but it'll be harder to put it in a direction where we get the satisfaction of a result. So we can feel like we really want to take action on things, but we can't get anywhere. It's like, when you're running through mud or something like that. So that can feel kind of frustrating. It's until the 24th of February. But Mars is such a powerful planet. It's our passion and drive, our action, our warrior, not the warrior, our warrior energy. And it is good to have a review period so that by the end of the retrograde, we will have reviewed where we're putting our energy and our time and enthusiasm. And Mars retrograde will help us sort out some of the question marks around some of the ways that we drive forward and fight for things in life. Okay, and there are the dates a little bit more. Mars is in Leo at the moment, but it will go back into Cancer as part of its retrograde before the 24th of February. And another thing happening this week from the 7th as well, there's lots of things happening on Saturday the 7th. Venus moves into Aquarius, and Venus in Aquarius, Venus has been in Capricorn, it's been traditional and more conservative in our beauty, our love, our money. And once Venus moves into Aquarius, Venus will be more quirky, a little bit more out there and unusual. So we might find ourselves thinking about alternative relationship structures like open relationships or different types of relationship rather than the traditional mom and pop kind of relationship. Even more about technology in relationships like AI love of some kind. Also, like Aquarius is about grand and innovative solutions using technology. And we might find that this is a really good time to go into partnership. If you've got some amazing idea in your head that could solve problems for humans or for great big groups of people, you might find that this is a good time to get into partnership with somebody about that. Yeah. Okay, and then Neptune stations direct, and that's on Sunday the 8th. So Neptune is an outer planet. It's 14 years in every sign, and it's been in Pisces for 14 years, just about. It's moving into Aries next year, and it's been retrograde in the sign of Pisces. And Neptune is about imagination, fantasy, it's glamorous, it's ethereal and mystical. And it's about water. So in the news, there's a lot about water at the moment, especially because Neptune's near the end degrees of Pisces. But in our even mental health, Neptune is about. And over the last few months, because it's been retrograde for a few months, we've been reviewing some of these matters and our ways in the world where we're really imaginative, connected to source, mental wellness, charity, compassion, empathy. And at the end of that period, when Neptune goes direct, we'll be able to go forward with some of those kinds of topics. However, I will say that those outer planets like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune and Pluto and Chiron even, when they go retrograde, it's pretty subtle. It's pretty hard to feel that in a really active way. It's more like afterwards you think, oh yeah, I think I've just like changed some of those things. Well, you might notice it, you might not. Okay, all right. And I just want to tell you something about the calendar that I make. So there's the Australian cover for the 2025 calendar, and there is the New Zealand cover, and here's an example of a month But what I wanted to show you, so that's Gemini for Australia, represented by the very cute Whakatū. And that's Taurus for New Zealand, represented by the takahe, sturdy bird. Okay, so these are the daily transits, and just a few of the daily transits that you get in the calendar for each month. And you can see how there's almost something almost every day, and some days have more than one transit because there's a lot going on. So all these ones that I talk about in my videos, they're in there, nearly all of them. There's limited space, so I don't do a lot on Chiron or the North Node or South Node. But you can also see how I've highlighted the transits that are the important ones. So in that little example there's a solar eclipse. There's Neptune moving into Aries next year on the 30th of March. And Mercury stationing direct next April. So that's just an example of how the calendar's laid out so that it can be helpful to you. And also because the personal planets, when they go retrograde, that has a stronger and more noticeable effect on us. And so I've marked out the retrogrades on the calendar grid, so you can see the yellow line at the bottom of each day there, and little labels to help you know when Mercury is retrograde, when Mars is retrograde, and also Venus will be retrograde next year. So up to April, there's a lot of stuff going on with the personal planet retrogrades, plus other huge stuff like Neptune moving into Aries. It's such a big year next year. Okay. Oh, there's the cute wombat for Taurus. Illustrations by Jazz Robery, who's done a great job. And there's the Piwaka Waka for New Zealand, our friendly Gemini friend. Okay, this week's transits and aspects. Let's get on. Okay, Sunday, the 1st of December, new moon in Sagittarius. So even though Mercury is retrograde, it is still a time with the new moon to have new starts. So take a couple of days of quiet and then make some moves towards whatever you want to grow, develop, expand, and move towards in that lunar month. And it's at the last month of the expansion of the solar year before we come to the summer solstice. So we're at the heights, we're at the full expression of the solar year. And then on Monday night, essentially, so late in the day in Australia and early in the day in New Zealand, Venus trine Uranus. So this is similar to Venus in Aquarius, like I was just talking about. So partnership and innovation, and more openness for unconventional relationship styles, freer ways of even thinking about money, because Venus can be money and possessions, and you might think of some new and different ideas in that regard. And then on Wednesday, did I just go over two? No. Okay, on Wednesday the 4th, Mercury retrograde will be opposite Jupiter, and that's like what I was talking about with that opposition, where we can be thinking about expanding the details or thinking about making the big picture smaller and more detailed. Avoid getting over focused on detail, or avoid talking too big. There can be tension with that opposition, but then also they're helping each other. Okay, Sun square Saturn, and that was one I mentioned with the new moon. Okay, so Saturn helps us to be sensible and disciplined, and to put a stop to things that need to just, keep things in balance so we don't just go crazy. And with the Sun, it's our soul's expression. It's how our soul wants to express and create and lead in this world. And so we can find that that's restricted with the square, and that could feel tense and uncomfortable, but it's only for a couple of days that we're under that energy. On Thursday the 5th, we've got a romantic one, and that is Venus sextile Neptune. And a sextile is an aspect of flow and ease, and Venus is romance and love and partnership, and Neptune is fantasy, also romantic, like everything will just be fine, everything will be all right. It's a feel good. It can be confusing, Neptune, and it can make us be delusional, but with a sextile I think we'll more get that lovely, glamorous, romantic, beautiful, feeling connected side. So that's quite lovely. And then that Mercury Cazimi moment where the Sun and Mercury retrograde are conjunct, and I've got the times there. So in New Zealand, Friday the 6th of December, 3:17 p.m. Try and take a break. Just walk around and ask a question, or just like think it in your head. Sydney and Melbourne, 1:17 p.m. maybe on your lunch break. Brisbane, 12:17 p.m. Adelaide, 12:47 p.m. So yeah, you guys in Aussie, you can maybe have it on your lunch break. Think about what you want to ask, maybe say it out loud, maybe write it, maybe imagine how it will feel to get a result for that answer, and why you want to know. Think about the amazing results and the feelings that you'd have if you knew and you could act on whatever it is. However you do it, whatever works for you. So enjoy that. On Saturday, all these things happening. Mars stations retrograde. That is a big one. Yeah, sometimes we have to wait in life, and Mars retrograde will make us wait, especially while we've got Mercury retrograde at the same time. So reviewing the ways that we take action from that Saturday, the 7th of December, right until 24th of February. Okay, Mercury retrograde square to Saturn. That's a tricky one. That's kind of heavy. Restrictions on our communication, which we're already feeling because of Mercury retrograde. It can be hard to plan things. We can have limits to our ideas and our thinking. But yeah, it's only a couple of days that will last very intensely. And then we've got Venus entering Aquarius, and as I talked about before, all on the same day, 7th of December, innovative solutions within partnership, open or unconventional relationships, and art and beauty can be more quirky, avant-garde, and unusual. And then on Saturday night or Sunday morning, depending on if you're in New Zealand or Australia, Venus conjunct Pluto, and so Pluto can be like really deep and passionate and intimate, and so there can be some really lovely deep love with Venus there, but it can get a little dark too, so be careful to avoid being possessive or jealous, and also like there can be extra focus on Venus matters because Pluto is like the searing focus. So love, beauty and pleasure, money, things ruled by Venus can have extra focus and intensity, and that can be a good thing, or it can go either way. So just be aware that if you're feeling like over obsessive about any of those, maybe try and let it go a bit. Only lasts a couple of days. And then on Sunday, the Sun opposite Jupiter, so that can mean we want to expand our creativity, the ways that we lead, our expression in the world, how our soul expresses in the world, how we shine in the world, and just be careful not to go too far with it with Jupiter. And also on Sunday, oh man, so many, Neptune stations directs, which I talked about before. So we've been reviewing that, and we've been reviewing our sort of our imagination, our connections to spirits, the ways we give charity, the ways we empathize with others. Yeah, water. So notice what happens in the news with water. There could be more stuff. Yeah. Okay, I think that's more than enough. So let's look at the chart of the new moon, because whatever's going on at the time of the new moon, when the sun and the moon come together, that sets a tone, it sets some energy that will carry us through over the following lunar month. So you can see on that chart there that the sun and the moon are together at 9 degrees of Sagittarius, right conjunct. So we won't be able to see the moon at that time. Okay, and also in Sagittarius, and being more intense at the moment, is Mercury, because Mercury is retrograde and it's coming back to meet the sun, which it will do towards the end of the week. And when Mercury is retrograde, it means that our left brain, our logical thinking, is more shuts down, or some would say actually it actually is fired up even more, so to the point where we can't really think as clearly and as logically and rationally as we perhaps normally do. Mercury retrograde is a really good time to review and research and analyze things in a slow way without rushing forward. And that Mercury retrograde will affect the new moon, because normally with a new moon, shortly after the new moon, we start going forward with new projects. But that's a little harder to do with Mercury retrograde. It doesn't mean you can't do them. You still can. But it might mean it just takes a little bit longer to get going, or there's a few extra steps along the way to sort out. And that Mercury retrograde happens to be opposite Jupiter, coming up to a second of 3 oppositions with Jupiter. And that can mean, so Jupiter is actually the ruler of this new moon, because Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, and Jupiter is in Mercury's sign of Gemini, and Mercury is in Jupiter's sign of Sagittarius. So there's mutual reception there. So those energies are really mixing and melding and crossing over each other together, and not in a bad way. Not necessarily in a bad way, though there can be tension in that. Mercury is about detail and the small, compartmentalized, passed out pieces, whereas Jupiter is about the big expanse, the big picture, the big ideas. Don't worry about the details too much. But with these two in opposition like that, especially in mutual reception, and it's happening 3 times because of Mercury's retrograde, going back and forwards, past and forwards over Jupiter. Yeah, I just think there could be something about that question of how we look at the big picture and how we see the details of a big picture. Or when we look at the details, how do we remember to also see the big picture as well? Yeah, okay. And at the same time, we've got the new moon in a square with Saturn, and this will help us remember to be sensible, to be serious. It will help us remember that not everything can be done straight away. We have to take time with things. With Saturn, there are rewards, but we have to work hard and be disciplined and expect to be patient. Yeah. Okay. And that Saturn happens to be in a T-square also with Jupiter, and that's not exact with the new moon, but Saturn and Jupiter are in an ongoing square together. That was exact, I think it was August. It's exact again on Christmas Day. And it's exact again next June, and that's part of their big overall 20-year cycle. That is a big driving force in our society, actually, the Saturn-Jupiter synodic cycle. If you'd like to know more about it, I have a video that I did with Ksenia Moore, my astrology teacher. It's probably like an hour and a half long, and that's coming up just before Christmas, all about that square in detail and what it means for the world and what it means for people in their personal lives. Okay, and also with the new moon, we've got a trine to Mars, and that trine also happens to be with the North Node in the sign of Aries. So that's a grand trine, so it's like a lovely equilateral triangle. And when we have a trine, things are more flowing. So with the new starts that we might have with this new moon, remembering, of course, with the retrograde that we take our time with those new starts, ideally. There might be some going over to do. But Mars will lend that energy, and also the North Node lends it a bit of a feeling of destiny about it, a feeling like these are part of fate, part of an important longer-term soul journey that we're on. So that's kind of cool. And it just happens to be that Mars is in this ongoing opposition with Pluto. There's a kite formation with that new moon. That's quite a big deal. That doesn't happen every day. But there's also some of these formations that are happening really a lot over the next couple of years showing up, because we've got Venus close to Pluto, which is trine, to Uranus, which is sextile to Neptune and the North Node, and later on Saturn's going to join up there. We've got a lot of trine and sextile trines and sextiles happening with the slow-moving outer planets that are going to have a big impact on us in society over the next few years. Okay, but mostly with the new moon, thinking about it's that quiet time. It's time to let things bubble up from within by withdrawing a bit, meditating, or being in a meditative state as you go about your daily life and reflecting, seeing what comes up. So there we go, everybody. That's all from me for today. Thank you for listening, and thank you those of you who have ordered a calendar so far. And yeah, they're available for New Zealand and Australia. So go to sunandmooncalendar.com if you're in Australia, or sunandmooncalendar.nz if you're in New Zealand. And please like, comment, or subscribe to the video. And all the best for Mars retrograde, Mercury retrograde, all the stuff that's happening. Happy new moon. Ngā mihi o te marama hau. Greetings for the new moon. And if you'd like to write a comment about how Mercury retrograde is affecting you, please go ahead. It would be interesting to read what you're coming up against or coming up with. I should be positive. Yeah, no, it's fine. Okay. Hei kona rā, ka kite, bye for now.